It was a small flat in the middle of a noisy city. The walls were plain and old, the paint was fading, and the furniture looked tired. Yet, for Mira, this flat was everything. She had lived there for 3 years, alone, after losing the people she once called family. The silence of the flat was heavy, but she had learned to live with it. Every corner of the place carried a memory of loneliness, but still, she tried to smile. Every morning, she would sit near the window, looking down at the busy street, watching strangers rush to their destinations. She often wondered if anyone ever noticed her, sitting quietly, waiting for something she did not even know. Her heart felt like the flat itself, empty, dull, and waiting for a reason to shine. One evening, after a long day of work, Mira came home to find a small paper stuck on her door. It was written in simple handwriting, "If you ever feel alone, just know someone cares." She looked around, confused. No one was in the hallway. She held the note tightly, her mind running in circles. Who could have written it? She had no close friends, no relatives in the city. For the first time in years, her heart beat a little faster. The next day, she found another note on her door. "Your smile can light up a room. Don't hide it." Mira was shocked. She barely smiled, especially in public. How did this person know? Was someone watching her? At first, she felt a bit scared, but there was something warm about those words. They were not cruel or threatening, they felt kind, almost healing. Days passed, and every evening, a new note appeared. Sometimes it was a small quote, sometimes just 2 words, like, "Stay strong," or, "Keep hoping." Slowly, Mira's flat started to feel different. She would come home, not to silence, but to the excitement of discovering a new message. She began to wait for it, like a child waiting for a surprise. One night, after a long shift, she entered the flat and found a little flower placed in a glass jar on her table. She froze. The door was locked when she arrived, but the flower was there, fresh and alive. Her heart raced with fear and curiosity. Who could enter her flat? And yet, instead of anger, she felt an unusual calmness. Whoever it was, they weren't trying to harm her, they were trying to bring life back into her empty space. From that day, small changes began to happen in her flat. A new pillow cover appeared on her bed, bright and soft. A colorful painting was placed on her wall, replacing the dull calendar she had left hanging for years. Even the kitchen, once dry and lifeless, had a small basket of fresh fruits. Every day, something new appeared, and with every change, Mira's flat seemed less empty, and her heart felt less lonely. But the biggest mystery remained: who was behind all this? She asked the neighbors, but no one had seen anything strange. She even spoke to the building watchman, but he just shrugged. "Maybe someone cares more than you think," he said with a knowing smile. One rainy evening, as thunder echoed in the sky, Mira sat on her couch staring at the changes in her flat. It was no longer just 4 walls, it felt warm, alive, and safe. But she could not ignore the question in her heart: who was turning her flat into something beautiful? Her eyes fell on the corner of the room. There, on the table, was another note. This one was different. It was not short or simple. It was longer, written with care. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. It read, "You don't know me yet, but I see the sadness you carry. I don't want anything from you. I just want to give you back the colors life once stole. One day, you will know who I am. Until then, let me fill this flat with the love your heart deserves." Mira's eyes filled with tears. She pressed the note to her chest. For the first time in years, she felt hope, even if it was wrapped in mystery. As the rain fell harder outside, she looked around her flat. It was no longer empty. It was alive with kindness. But her heart whispered the one question she could not silence: who is he? The next morning, Mira woke up earlier than usual. The words from last night's note were still echoing in her mind. She sat on her bed and looked around the flat. The small flower in the jar, the new painting, the colorful pillow covers, everything felt so different now. It was as if someone was slowly painting her life with colors she had forgotten. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window, holding the note in her hand. Her thoughts were restless. Who was this stranger? Why was he doing this for her? And most importantly, how was he even entering her flat? Her fear still existed, but it was mixed with something stronger: curiosity. She decided that day she would try to catch the person. She stayed home from work, pretending to be sick, just to watch. Hours passed. She listened to every sound in the hallway, every footstep outside her door. But nothing happened. By evening, she felt tired and disappointed. Maybe the person knew she was waiting. Maybe he was watching her more closely than she imagined. When she woke up the next day, she found something new near the kitchen. A small wooden frame with the words, "Happiness lives where kindness is planted." She smiled, but also shook her head in disbelief. How was it possible? She had been in the flat all day yesterday. Had she fallen asleep without realizing? Or was this person so quiet that she didn't even notice? Her heart was restless, but also strangely comforted. Whoever it was, he wasn't just decorating her flat, he was changing the way she felt about herself. For the first time in many years, she woke up excited to see what surprise might come next. One evening, after a tiring day at work, she entered her flat and froze. On her small dining table was a home-cooked meal. Warm, fresh, and neatly placed with a little card beside it: "You deserve to be cared for." Mira's eyes filled with tears. She hadn't eaten a proper meal cooked with care in years. She sat down slowly, her hands trembling as she lifted the spoon. Every bite tasted like comfort, like something she had been missing for far too long. But this time, fear returned stronger. It was no longer about flowers or pillow covers. Someone had been in her flat, cooking in her kitchen. She stood up quickly, checking every corner, every room, every door. Everything was locked, every window was closed. How was it possible? Her mind raced with questions, but her heart whispered something else. This is not danger, this is love. The next morning, she decided to share the truth with someone. She went to the old woman living across the hall. "Have you noticed anyone near my flat? Maybe entering when I'm not around?" she asked nervously. The woman looked at her with tired but kind eyes. "Child, sometimes angels don't knock on the door. They just come to heal you." Mira was speechless. She wanted answers, not riddles. But the old woman only smiled and closed her door. Days passed, and Mira stopped resisting. She allowed the changes to happen. Every morning, she woke up to something new. A blanket folded neatly on her couch, a small plant placed near her window, soft lights glowing in the corners of the room. Slowly, her flat transformed into a home filled with warmth and care. Yet, the mystery only grew. Who was this man? Why her flat? Why her life? One late night, after finishing her work, she returned home and found something different waiting for her. It wasn't an object, it wasn't a flower, and it wasn't food. It was music. A soft melody played in her flat, gentle and soothing, as if someone had left behind a recording just for her. On the table, there was another note: "Sometimes music heals what words cannot." She sat down, listening to the melody, and closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she let herself cry, not out of sadness, but out of relief. Whoever this man was, he understood her pain more than anyone else ever had. But that night, something strange happened. As she was about to sleep, she noticed something on the floor near her door. It was not a note this time. It was a small key. A key that didn't belong to her. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. Whose key was this? Why was it here? Was it a mistake, or was it a message? Her heart beat faster. For the first time, she realized, this stranger was closer than she ever imagined. And maybe, he wanted her to find him. The small key rested in Mira's palm, shining under the dim light of her room. She turned it over again and again, trying to make sense of it. It wasn't one of her keys. Her doors, her cupboards, even her tiny drawers already had matching keys. This was different, smaller, older, almost as if it belonged to something hidden. She placed it on the table, but sleep refused to come that night. Her mind kept whispering the same questions. Was it left by mistake? Or was it meant for her to discover something? The next morning, she decided to test it. She walked around her flat, trying it on every lock she owned, but nothing matched. At last, she gave up and left it back on the table, frustrated but also deeply curious. That evening, when she returned from work, she noticed something new. Near the flower jar, a small wooden box sat quietly. It hadn't been there in the morning. Her heart raced. With trembling hands, she brought the key closer. Could this be it? She inserted the key, and it turned smoothly. The lock clicked open. Inside the box was a stack of folded letters, tied neatly with a red ribbon. She pulled the ribbon off slowly and opened the first letter. Her eyes widened as she began to read. Dear Mira, you don't know me, but I know your silence. I have watched you walk into this building every evening with tired steps and lonely eyes. I have seen how you sit by your window, staring at the world but never joining it. You don't smile often, but when you do, it feels like sunlight in this dull city. I couldn't stop myself from wanting to give that smile back to you. Mira's hands shook. She read the second letter. Life has been cruel to you, hasn't it? You carry pain, but you hide it so well. People outside may not see it, but I do. I don't want you to be afraid. I don't want you to feel alone. Let me bring light back into your flat, and maybe, into your heart. Her breath caught. Every letter spoke directly to her pain, her loneliness, her silence. Whoever this man was, he understood her better than anyone else ever had. But how? She had never spoken to him. She didn't even know who he was. She read letter after letter, and each one felt like a mirror to her hidden soul. And then she found one that froze her completely. Mira, there will be a day when I step out of the shadows. But until then, remember this, you are not invisible. Someone sees you. Someone cares for you more than you know. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She closed the box and hugged it tightly. For the first time, she felt like someone was holding her heart gently in their hands. But the mystery grew heavier. Who was this man? A neighbor? A stranger on the street? Someone she passed every day without noticing? The following days, she couldn't concentrate at work. Every face she saw on the street, every person in the building, she looked at differently. Was it him? The shopkeeper? The postman? The man who always sat on the bench outside the building? One evening, she stood by her window longer than usual, watching the street below. People walked quickly with umbrellas in the light rain. Suddenly, her eyes caught a figure standing across the street, looking up at her window. She couldn't see his face clearly, but she knew he wasn't just passing by. He stood still, almost waiting for her to notice. Her heart pounded. Was that him? Was this the man who had been changing her flat, filling it with life? Before she could move, the figure slowly turned and disappeared into the crowd. The next morning, another note appeared on her table. Only 4 words this time. Soon, you will know. Mira sat frozen, holding the note. Her flat was no longer just a home, it had become a mystery, a puzzle, and a promise. And deep inside, her heart whispered the question she feared the most. What if she discovered the truth? And it broke her. The note, soon, you will know, kept echoing in Mira's mind. She held it tightly in her hands, her eyes moving around the room. Everything inside her flat had changed so much. Bright cushions, fresh flowers, soft lights, even a warmth in the air. But now, it wasn't just about the beauty of the flat. It was about the man behind it all. For the first time, she realized something important. Whoever he was, he knew her very well. He understood her pain, her silence, her hidden tears. And that thought both comforted her and frightened her. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every sound outside her door made her sit up, listening carefully. At one point, she even thought she heard soft footsteps in the hallway. Slowly, she got up and opened the door. But the hallway was empty, silent as always. The next morning, she decided she could not keep waiting passively. She had to do something. She went down to the building guard again. "Have you seen anyone near my flat at night?" she asked, trying to hide her nervousness. The guard gave her a strange look and smiled faintly. "Miss Mira, this building is old. People come and go. But there is one man I see often. He stands near the gate, sometimes for hours, watching the building. I never see him enter, but his eyes, they are always searching." Mira's heart skipped a beat. "Did you see his face?" she asked. The guard shook his head. "Not clearly. He keeps his cap low. But I think he lives nearby." That evening, Mira waited by her window again. Hours passed, and just when she thought nothing would happen, she saw him. Across the street, half hidden under the shadow of a tree, a man stood quietly. He wasn't moving, wasn't talking to anyone, just looking at her building. Her chest tightened. Was this the one? She wanted to call out, but her voice refused to come. When she blinked, he was gone again. Inside her flat, she found something new waiting. A soft blanket draped across her couch and a note placed carefully on top. "When the night feels cold, remember someone wants to keep you warm." She touched the blanket with trembling fingers. The words hit her heart deeply. Who was this man who knew exactly what she needed before she even said it? The days that followed were even stranger. She noticed things she hadn't before. When she returned home from work, her shoes were neatly arranged by the door. Her books, once scattered, were now placed in perfect order on the shelf. Even the broken clock on her wall had been replaced with a new one, ticking softly. He wasn't just decorating her flat, he was taking care of her, as if he had been living with her in silence all along. But the fear grew too. Was she safe? Or was this a dangerous obsession? Her heart didn't know what to believe. One moment, she felt loved. The next, she felt watched. One night, as she was about to sleep, she heard something unusual, a faint knock on her window. Her flat was on the 3rd floor. No one could reach her window so easily. She froze in place, her breath caught. Slowly, she walked to the window and pulled the curtain aside. There was nothing there. Just darkness and the streetlights below. Her heart raced as she closed the curtain quickly. But when she turned back, she saw it. On her table, there was a new note. She was certain it hadn't been there a moment ago. Her hands shook as she picked it up. "The day is near. Don't be afraid. I will not harm you. I only want to give back what life took away from you: love, trust, and a reason to smile again." Her eyes filled with tears. She sat down on the couch, holding the note to her chest. She didn't know whether to cry in fear or in relief. But one thing was certain now: he was closer than ever before. And soon, she would have to face him. The nights felt longer now. Every corner of the flat carried both warmth and fear. Mira would walk into her home and smell fresh flowers, see folded blankets, hear soft music, but she no longer asked how. She knew he was there. Somewhere close. Watching. Waiting. The last note still lay on her table. "The day is near." Her heart was restless. She could not decide if she wanted that day to come, or if she wanted it to never arrive. But she knew one thing: her life had already changed. Her flat, once silent and empty, now felt alive. And her heart, once locked in grief, now beat with a strange hope. One evening, after work, she stepped into her flat and froze. The lights were dim, but there was something different. On the floor, leading from the door to the living room, were rose petals, scattered gently. Her breath caught. She followed them slowly, her hands trembling. On the table, instead of a note, there was a small envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper with 5 words written on it. "It is time to meet." Her chest tightened. She turned quickly, half expecting to see someone standing in the shadows. But the flat was silent. She sat down, her mind spinning. Fear, curiosity, longing, all emotions mixed together inside her. That night, she could not sleep. Every sound outside felt louder. Every creak in the hallway made her heart jump. She kept staring at the door, waiting for it to open. And then, at midnight, there was a soft knock. Mira's entire body froze. For a long moment, she couldn't move. Slowly, she stood up and walked to the door. Her hand shook as she reached for the handle. She opened it gently. There he was. A man stood in the doorway, holding a small lantern. His face was calm, his eyes soft but filled with something deep, sorrow and kindness together. He wasn't a stranger after all. Mira gasped. It was Ariv, the quiet neighbor from the first floor, the man she had seen so many times passing in the hallway but never spoken to. He always kept his head low, always silent, almost invisible. She had never thought much about him. Until now. Her voice broke. You. It was you all this time. Ariv lowered his eyes, his voice gentle. Yes. I'm sorry if I scared you. I never meant to. I couldn't watch you live in so much silence. I knew that silence. I have lived in it too. Mira stared at him, speechless. He continued, his hands trembling slightly as he held the lantern. I lost someone too. My home became empty, my heart even emptier. But then, every day I saw you. Sitting by the window, carrying the same loneliness I carried. I wanted to reach out, but I didn't know how. So, I began with small notes. Small changes. I thought maybe, if I could fill your flat with life, your heart might follow. Tears blurred Mira's vision. She clutched the doorframe, her heart heavy yet light at the same time. Why didn't you just knock? Why all this mystery? Ariv's eyes glistened. Because I was afraid. Afraid you would push me away. Afraid you wouldn't accept kindness from a stranger. I thought, if I let the changes speak first, maybe your heart would accept mine later. Silence filled the air. Only the ticking of the clock echoed in the flat. Mira's tears rolled freely now. She looked around her home, the flowers, the lights, the softness that had returned. Every single thing reminded her of the care she had been given. She turned back to Ariv, her lips trembling. You changed my flat, she whispered. But more than that, you changed my heart. For the first time in years, she smiled fully, openly. Ariv's eyes softened, relief washing over his face. He stepped inside, carefully, as if waiting for her permission. And she didn't stop him. The silence of her flat was no longer heavy, it was warm. That night, Mira sat with Ariv, 2 cups of tea between them, and for the first time, words filled the flat instead of emptiness. 2 broken hearts, once strangers, now began to heal together. Her flat was no longer just 4 walls. It had become a home. And her heart, once empty, was finally full.